Hey, good afternoon. It's your girl. It's Tam Behind the Mic. And I haven't been on my channel in a couple of weeks. I've been so busy and tied up and in the heat and everything impacting. I hope you YouTubers have been okay. I missed you all deeply. Yes, this is what, August 3rd. Can you believe it? We're more than halfway into the new year. Well, I got a lot going on. Um, Right now, what I'm just simply doing is I am going to, I think I told you all earlier in an earlier YouTube video, how I was planting new seeds, literally and figuratively. So, my day is going fantastic, and I am getting ready to rinse off some collard greens, cut them up in my garden. I've been checking out the Green-Eyed Genie, how he's setting his history within now what's called hip hop. And we have so many contributors, so many unsung pioneers. Like, I started in 1976 in Queens, not because of the Bronx. I didn't know what they were doing in the Bronx. I was young, in fact, a preteen. Now, I think we all can agree that for me, hip hop didn't start in the community center. I was introduced in 1976 in Queens in the park. I know about Disco King Mario. I rocked with Disco King Mario. But it's about time that people step up and talk about the real stuff. Like, I know I'm one of the first female MCs in Queens. And because you have some people that's capping in the Bronx that they was the first to do everything, and you got people from Queens that's co-signing that because they fanboys. You understand? And the truth of the matter is that from my investigation, I have numerous amount of interviews with other pioneers throughout various different boroughs, and the message and the narrative just don't add up. I haven't had the opportunity to check out LL Hip Hop was born here, because I even, wrote on his Instagram, like, how could you come to St. Albans, Queens, and you all are not interviewing the real pioneers from there? You understand? Myself included. I remember when LL was a little kid, and I was with Future Sounds. I rocked with Ebony Sounds. I rocked with Unique Sounds. I was the only female in St. Albans, Hollis, North Side, South Side. So how you saying hip hop started these different places, and the Herc thing? And Herc, people say, oh, he doesn't say it. Yes, he does. I saw an interview with him and his sister Cindy Campbell, which I always, even in the 50th year and before that, I have asked, like, did they come to the Bronx and they introduced this? No. Every borough, in the 70s, every borough, every section had their own things going on. And you really had to know somebody. Happy Sunday to you. Hey, hi Gigi, how you doing? Yeah, I haven't been here in a minute because I've been running around. As you all know, I've been taking care of my, grandchildren who have special needs since I lost my daughter, one of my daughters, 8 years ago. So things have been quite challenging. And because I no longer like really perform and get gigs and stuff like that, but I can tell you about the history of hip hop and what we was doing before the wax. Again, I need to reiterate, a lot of the females that crossed over and did it commercially, I come before all of them. I really do. I come before Cheryl James, who is Saul, went to high school. She was sitting on the B-53 bus, sideline, while I would freestyle from Queens all the way to Brooklyn. Definitely come before Roxanne Shante. And there's a lot of people that know that. And, as I expand my channel, I am going to let you see and hear witnesses with actual testimony. Now, everybody that was there, a lot of people transition, they no longer here. And their legacies, a lot of them started a lot of things, but they're not here to tell their stories and tell their experiences. But I'm here. I'm here. And I refuse to be quiet because the government and the powers that be are pushing these false narratives. Like every borough, every section had their first, okay, especially females. You understand? We were very few. And you couldn't go into certain neighborhoods. I didn't get up to the Bronx till 1978. And when some kids that was all staying in this particular homes, because like Jeannie says, they were jostling, they were hustlers. I was there for other reasons because initially when I was born, I had an intact family. So I thought I had a two-parent household. I was born in East Elmhurst, Corona area, and my mom had mental health issues, and a lot of the family dysfunctions that can occur when there's a split and breakup happens. But music had always been a staple within my household because my family were into blues, and my dad played a lot of music and he made a lot of money. He, was into some things. I don't know because I wasn't privy to that. But I do know that the evidence says differently. And because I was really tight with my grandfather, who was a musician, and they played bands. My great uncle Moody, which his real name was Leander Tillman, and they had relocated to California, and he had a band there too. And most recently, I contacted and got back in touch with that side of the family, and I got some more information. So, I'm in discussion, and we're trying to female, but my take is that a lot of people were preyed upon, whether or not it be a girl, whether or not it be a boy, and people were taken advantage. So and there's a lot of healing that needs to go on because a lot of people we lost. We did. So I figured I'd come out here. And Wusa, I just finished checking out Green Eye Janie, and I remember him. I do. I remember him in Bronxdale, and I don't know if he came through Queens Society Prevention of Cruelty to Children because that was a kids' shelter during that time, and that was a temporary holding place for children that were either involved juvenile crimes, and they had cases in Queens Family Court, and this housed all the children. How you doing, Megan? Good to see you. Right? It housed children from within all 5 boroughs. And a lot of people do not tell that story, and they came through there. And because I was such a staple, and that's how I got to the outer boroughs. That's how I got out to the outer boroughs. Now, I started in 1976 when they would supposedly be doing this timeline, which is a false timeline. It is. I can say that because when you're asking people to change their timeline and to change their story to fix someone else is ridiculous because everybody has a different story. And I know that there's a lot of underground hate because I was there. No, I wasn't in the Bronx when they said they kicked off stuff. I was in Queens. I got with LL Cool J because I've asked so many different people and they spoke to me, sis. Hey, I'm taking care of some things and I checked out the Brooklyn Unity Fest, you know, and my thing is this is the true stories need to be told, the unheard. And it's a shame how we'll sell one another just to try to get ahead. Evidently, yeah, 1973. They always say they give cool DJ Herc that credit of 1973. But however, like when I spoke to you before, Disco King Mario was already out in 1973 and he was already in Bronxdale. He was already doing his thing, you know. Um, I know I heard about Flash in maybe 1977 and more so when he was coming down to Queens to play at the Fantasia. Mm-hmm. So, we do know Flash did create a different technique. I remember Grand Wizard Theodore in 1978, like I said, when I first had, and that's how I was introduced to Disco King Mario. Yeah. And but Disco right did but what they failed to share is that hip hop birthed out from not only disco, but you had James Brown. You had those beats. You had Queen. We will rock you. And a lot of the older guys were playing disco. They want to say, oh, they was doing hip hop. But the story that they don't want to tell, it was like the preteens and the early tween teens that created it because we couldn't get into some of those clubs. And Mario has been known with also with what's his name? D DJ D and his brother. They had sound systems. Even the Disco Twins, they didn't start out with the birthers and all of that. They had a smaller system. How I found that out is because I have a book that Baby J has, and he was one of the well-known promoters. He was in the clubs. He brought New Edition out to Queens. He was doing a whole lot, and he's Hispanic. And I don't think they want to give him too much credit because, again, it's not a 50-50 when it comes to Latino. It was a few, but it wasn't no 50-50 split like Fat Joe tried to say. Yes. Yeah. Just begun. Absolutely. Yeah, and there was the B-boy breaks, dancers, and there was the B-girls. But St. Albans had him too. And that was in I would like to say 1977, because one of the girls that I wound up living with, Barbara, she was considered a B girl, and this girl named Cricket, and it was a few others. I was before then because I was with the breakdown, where you would go off, yeah, when you would get off, right, on the break part. And shucks, my family used to do dances in 1970. So I got an interview with with my cousin's mom, who's 86. You know what I mean? It was soulful. And Mario, come to find out, Mario is related to my family. But it's always knew, but I had gotten confirmation with him being in Elizabeth City because in 1977, they were playing the breaks. They wasn't scratching, to my knowledge, and that was Big J and Big Mike. And I performed with them in 1977. So when I speak on certain things, it's not what I'm assuming, it's factual. What I know, because I lived it, and I have been interviewing other people that's still alive from all the boroughs, you know. And I just hope that one day we all could kind of get it together. So with that, what I'm doing is, I told y'all early on I was planting some seeds. So here's my little garden in the backyard, right? I love flowers, you know. And I said it's not bad, too bad from a kid that was once homeless and was going on. Yeah, I gotta get him some water. Yep, I've been here. Yeah, these white bugs, they get on them. I have to spray them with some neem oil. But what I'm doing, I'm washing them because I'm going to pick these because they'll eat up the whole damn collard greens. So I got some neem oil, right? Then I got some tomatoes. I got some strawberries growing. I got peppers over there. And listen, I ain't live a day down south. I used to go down south, when I was home for the summers. And when I had got kicked out the damn group home, I had some of my best time because us children and the teenagers, we was mobbing all the boroughs. Harlem. I went to Harlem first, and I wonder what happened to a lot of those kids. It's only a few that I've ran into as an adult. Yeah, as an adult. So I'm wondering, what came to be of a lot of them. And I ran into a couple about the rapping and the MC. And there were so many twists and turns in my life. And I always say, when I hooked up with them older guys, because like I said, it seems like to me, what they don't want to say is that the older cats was preying on the younger kids when it comes to rapping and hip hopping and stuff like that. And the b-boy, because not only the breakdancing didn't only come from Jimmy Castor. Honestly, it came from the disco era. Now I'm not talking about Saturday Night Fever. I'm talking about what they were doing in the Paradise Garage, from what I know, not Studio 54, what they were doing at the loft. Because I went to those places as a teenager, and people would say, oh, you was too young. Let me tell you something. If you knew people, you was getting into them spots. You was getting into them spots. This is my back patio. I got my bag here so I can get these greens out. Yeah. Yeah, maybe the kids will come out here and listen to some music. I'm not putting nothing on the grill because I got to take it easy. I've had a ball with my other niece, Kim Hunter Silk, from the group Silk and Lace. She'll tell you I was part of that duo brought in to replace original member by them same freaking shiesty guys. And, I've had to pull up some of their interviews for, some legal stuff, right? And they never say they claim to fame is the top 100 billboard. You know why? Because the appropriate people didn't get the credit and they didn't get paid. Look, my strawberries is growing all over the place. The vine. Yeah, I gotta move them. So this is what I try to do in my spare time to keep me grounded is grow some vegetables. Because the way the economy is, people that's supposed to be receiving help, they're not. And the illegals come in here and getting carte blanche. Make it make sense. Meanwhile, they figure they give the black folks some stuff to argue and fight over with this hip hop history. And when we think of it, people that became millionaires, what did they really do? Did they really invest in the community? You might see them give out a turkey here and there. And one example, Jay-Z. He attended junior high school 318, right? Right there in Williamsburg. And I'm familiar with the former president, who was a fraternity individual with somebody I know in Queens from hip hop from Phase 3, right? They've requested for him to come to the school just to speak to the youth on numerous occasions. And he's been a no-show. Yep. Same thing with LL. Yeah, I know that he has like the basketball camp for the kids at O'Connell Park, which is one of the parks that I've frequently performed at, being from St. Albans in the Hollis region. And they got a whole new, another MC, Sweet Tea. She never even played in the damn park on the mural. Make it make sense. So I'm thinking, should I just sit around and let that happen? Hell no. We got to call people out. That's why I say Green Eyed Genie. He know, but I know one damn thing. I never went to Cool Herc's party, but I did see the flyers with Herc and the Herculoids, because the kids in the shelter, they were the rappers, the original hip hoppers. They were. See, I'm picking these greens. I'm going to mix them with my cabbage, but then I'm going to come back here and spray this with neem oil. Just keeps these white bugs. That's why they tell you when you have your collard greens and stuff, you soak them in salt and Epsom salt. Get them bugs out. The kids upstairs having a ball. Yeah, let me flip this around. So this is my little garden here. And it feels good when you can come in your backyard. I understand what my grandmother and them did in the South, because they picked their fresh vegetables and they grew their own. It's amazing how DNA is. Like, I didn't learn how to grow and how the germination process worked firsthand. I learned about it in school, PS 118, and I went to IS 238 because I was rapping and doing my thing, right? I had to fight. So they not telling you about how difficult it was. And I think that's why a lot of pioneers are beginning, real pioneers that know that was there, are getting ready to speak out. You know? Just because you was the first to do something. I don't think Hurt got a lot of damn money. I know when he was having medical problems, they had a GoFundMe, you know, to help save his life. But he need to tell the damn truth. You know, and all peace to Colt Barack, but rapping and scatting existed before they named it hip hop. They done stole everybody's style. Yeah, they done stole everybody's style and trying to make it their own. because it became $1 million business. And we don't pay attention to history. That's one thing the blacks have always, mass majority of the time, sold one another out. And they don't, it's like crabs in the barrel. Instead of saying and being eyewitness, I don't know. Because every place was terrible. Very territorial. South Jamaica and Hollis and St. Albans, yeah, the blocks, because it was residential, but that shit wasn't quiet. I lived and I hung out on both sides, the north side and south side. My cousin was Jamaica from the Seven Crowns with Fat Cat and them. And I remember stories about them. One of my MC partners, too, from the Imperial 5 MCs from South Jamaica. Yeah, I was with Father Taheen a couple of weeks ago. You know, because I've been making my business to tell my damn story. My history got to be told. And I got receipts. But I ain't going to run around and say, ooh. I'm just gathering some more stuff. Because people know that they're blatantly lying. You know, and I like Cass. Think he's a great performer. But all of a sudden, people done built him up. And now he think he a damn historian. He's not. I remember the first time I personally met Cold Crush was when I was staying with a friend of me, right? I don't know if I had a pass if I went, or I was if I had finally started staying there because messed around and got discharged, and I thought it was my fault because us girls, we was mobbing and the guys to go to the jams, right? Because that's what they were called. It wasn't until the 80s to Africa Bambaataa came up with some culture. And you know that whole big scandal and that big best kept secret up in the Bronx, which should have never really happened. Because we talk about, we police and take care of our own. That don't happen like that anymore like it probably did in Africa. Or wherever, you originated. Because not everybody came from Africa. And to put that thing to rest, at one point all the continents was together. How about that? Before things evolved and then they split. Yeah. Sure enough. So here, I think I ain't been here in a while. See, I got these collard greens soaking. Ain't many of them. Because them light bugs, they'll eat your damn collard greens up. But these some pretty greens. They are. They some pretty greens. Yeah. Because I remember even on Corona. I remember Woody Wood. But I also remember King Charles. It's like, one prominent, because they had the sound system, they trying to drown out everybody else. And it was a big crew that used to outdo them from Ravenswood. And it's always been alleged that these same guys conspired and had the competition taken out. So I have been listening to these interviews, right? And they're not mentioning that. Of course not. And one of their top MCs allegedly had to do time. Just like, Shine with Diddy. A lot of things they putting on Diddy, it just didn't start. You know what I mean? And if that's part of the culture, that wasn't really anything to advance us. So, I look at it the flip side. I look at things from various different angles. Because a lot of things that the culture, hip-hop culture breeded, was not positive for all of us as a race. It wasn't. You know, the lifestyle and all of that. What people was doing to keep up with the lifestyle. How the moral value and the moral compass was compromised because of the you know, the peddling that was going on. With the boys and girls. You know? And I think one of the things that made it even worse is when it crossed over to commercialism. You know, so now people that got money, they want to be historians, or they just getting their claim to fame. Because I heard, you know, I think Kaz even mentioned it. He have a lot of children. Like a lot of them did. Like a lot of hustlers did. You know, some of those children probably made it to be successful and not. And you know, the teenagers, like I said, they were coming out them clubs. They saw what we had going on in the parks and different venues. And Jamaica Army is when, you know, the Bronx was coming down to Queens. I know I was there. My crew didn't perform specifically that night, but I was there. And you have to stay tuned for my documentary and my memoir that's coming up soon. You know, because now you got people that's teaching this stuff in the colleges. And they know damn well they wrong. One female, oh, she unfriended me because she was afraid I was going to blast her up. Because I remember seeing her at an event and approaching her, saying, listen, you know, let's speak like adult women. No, she want to do that sneaky slide stuff. You know, which is crazy. Yeah. Soak up these collard greens. Got my salt here. You know how we do. And I'm going to pick through them finally. And I'm going to mix them with some cabbage. Let me turn this around. Yeah, so it's interesting. So, you know what we do, we let people come up with a date. And that postcard at the first so-called hip-hop party, and I've been inside Bronx Rivers Community Center. That center is very small. Now, and I also was out there with Disco King Mario in Bronxdale in that park. That park was packed. Mario did have all the strobe lights, disco lights. It was lit because not all parties was fully disco. And that's what they confused. They was mixing the rapping and MCing over disco beats. The break parts. There was. When it crossed over, they used Good Times. The Sugar Hill Gang. Sylvia Robinson definitely was a little innovator. But also, you remember when there was The Moments. What she did with The Moments. And perhaps, we don't know, I don't know if it was arson that set Sugar Hill Records on fire with unreleased music and songs and stuff. If it was done intentionally, because you had some wise guys that they borrowed money from to start that ship, allegedly. I wasn't there. And once it became big, they had to pay them. They had to pay the piper. If you dancing to the music, you gotta pay the piper. Yeah, Angie Stone sequence and everything. You know, so yeah, I believe in some of the things, and I agree with some of the things that, you know, Green Eyed Jeannie does. But then some of it is kind of debatable because I don't think it's a one size fit all. You know, because Angie B and the Sequence never heard, and they didn't know what we was doing here in New York. They didn't. So at that, I just wanted to check in with you all, let you know that Tam Behind the Mic is still going strong. You know, I'm doing the best. I'm enjoying the summer. I'm taking care of the grands. Got my niece over here. She had an opportunity to go out and have a good time. They upstairs playing PlayStation 5. I ordered another controller, you know, so everybody could play together. Yeah, so, you know, it's always peace, love, and light. And, you know, it's a shame how you can't come on one accord. That's why I attended the Universal Hip Hop until they had an agenda. You could always tell when our people, when you've been out in the street, you know the square side of the street and you know the shady kind of side of the street. And acquiring wisdom, you know, in the 60s, you see a lot of things differently and you know what to look for. And I knew in the back of my mind they up to something. But they knew I was able to spar, and the information I was able to divulge was not somebody that was on the sideline. It was somebody that was there and that participated and know. So, at that, I hope you all enjoy your Sunday fun day. And then we'll break and I'll tap in tomorrow on a Monday. Peace, blessings, and light. And let's keep the story and the history right. Once again, it's Tam behind the mic.